Our mission gets a lot of attorney letters in the mail. They're not from criminal defense lawyers, and they're not from the local prosecutor's office either. They're from attorneys who specialize in disability qualification. You may already know that the number of disability approvals in the first decade after 2000 rose more than 200%, and today, early Social Security awards for disability is the leading cause for working-age adults remaining idle. Scott is one of those. He was once a student in our long-term recovery and work-ready program at the Mission. He had made a 12-month commitment to journey toward a path of full-time employment, independent housing, and self-reliance. He had recently entered the work-ready component of our program, had completed his soft skill training, computer literacy education, his functional capacity evaluation, and he was in the middle of applying for internship jobs with our partner employers when he received a notification that a 2-year-old disability application had been approved. According to the ruling, he was entitled to a few decent back pay checks and then $980 a month for the rest of his life. Scott stepped into my office, sat in my chair. He put his hands in his head, torn over the decision he had to make: continue on his journey toward full-time employment or take his disability and run. I encouraged him, prayed with him, reminded him what was really at stake, but in the end, he just couldn't pass up the cash. Although he admitted he knew he could make it without it, he took the disability and ran. We knew Scott. We cared about Scott. And we knew he had the capability to work a full-time job. Scott knew it too. But now, in order to keep his disability, he'll always be limited to part-time employment. Again, Scott isn't alone. In fact, I can't count how many times people have told me they can only get a job that pays under the table or one with limited hours because too much work might interfere with their disability check. Even on the very day I recorded this, Jeff, a 30-year-old homeless man, told me he can't work because he almost has his disability approved. "I'm just waiting on a call from my attorney," he said. "I've been working on this for 4 years." Scott, Jeff, and millions of others today are succumbing to perverse incentives. Perverse incentives are the promises of benefits that entice people to act in ways that oppose a flourishing life. Although I've been highlighting the Social Security Disability Insurance Program, or SSDI, the Social Security Administration isn't the only one to blame for the creation of perverse incentives. The risk for this is always present if the extent of help promised to a person in need is based on the extent of a person's poverty. In other words, if we promise more help because a person is more poor or sick, we increase the risk of perversely incentivizing poverty and sickness. But you and I want to help people move in the other direction, toward wealth and wellness. How do we do that? How can we avoid the perverse incentive trap? After all, if a person has great need, shouldn't we lend great help? To solve this problem, we have to understand 2 different types of categorization: dysfunction-based and function-based. Dysfunction-based categorization categorizes a person into a help category based on the extent of his dysfunction. This type of categorization asks questions like, what can't you do and what do you lack? Whereas function-based categorization asks questions like, what can you do and what do you have? Function-based categorization doesn't ignore the problems or the hurdles a person may face, but categorizes a person into a help category based first and foremost on an examination of capacity and ability instead of incapacity and disability. By employing function-based categorization in your work, you'll start people off on the right foot, helping them capitalize on their strengths rather than magnify their weaknesses. Here are your true charity takeaways today. Number 1, there are strengths and weaknesses in every person. Elevate the importance of finding the strengths of the people you serve. Number 2, be determined to find an employable gift in every person, and then let them know you notice it and encourage them to use it. Number 3, people will come to you today asking for something with a reason why they need it. Respect them enough to consider asking this refreshing, and edifying question. What has God gifted you with to contribute? Now let's go out there today, fight poverty, and win.